Hi, I'm Lisa Valentine Clark, and welcome to the Council of Moms. It's free and worth every penny. The Council of Moms, it's just like therapy, but you don't have to pay or go anywhere or do anything.
I like it.
Perfect.
And none of us
Thank
are
you.
therapists.
You
Yes,
get what
and-
you pay for.
Yep.
I am a therapist.
Oh,
just to throw
oh,
it out there.
We're saved. We're saved.
That's
We're
just-
good.
but this
Finally,
is
we have
not therapy.
credibility around here. Listen,
This
we
is
should
not a
not be
therapy
left to
session.
our own devices. We've thought of everything at the Council of Moms.
Just turn it over to Ruth, Lisa.
Well, let me tell you, when I'm a mom, I'm a mom,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
therapist in me is gone. So
Mm-hmm.
My favorite way of describing the Council of Moms is our new tagline, the Council of Moms, made with real moms.
I
Yes.
love that.
Yes.
That
These are
is
real
correct.
moms.
Yep.
And so I need these conversations and I love to share these conversations. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Today on the Council of Moms, we've got Lindsay, Whitney, and Ruth with us today. Hey, moms, how do I teach my kids to be grateful?
Ooh.
That almost seems
Yeah.
like a backhanded
Yeah.
question. Like, be grateful.
No.
Right?
There is a lot of pressure, though. I think I was just listening to another podcast and they were saying something like, I'm a first generation immigrant. So is my husband. And we came to this country with very little. And now we're doing okay. Like, and my kids have no idea, like, really the same, childhood that I had. And I'm both grateful for that and feel a little dissatisfied with that. So where is that tension? And I just thought we all feel that on some level,
Mhm.
don't we?
Yeah.
In our sphere. And so it does feel like a threat, Whitney. I agree. Like, be grateful. But we want to instill and welcome our children to gratitude of the things that they are able to take for granted as kids. So how do you turn their focus towards what they could be grateful for?
Maybe that's a good place to start, is just talking about like some family history stories
Mm,
where it's just like, just for them to be aware. I think that's a big part of it. Maybe it's just letting them be aware of that. Yeah, this isn't the way life has gone for thousands and thousands of years, what you
Yeah.
have.
mm.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good place to start.
Ooh, I do love that. Because then it comes to mind of things like that. I think when I just start with me, it sounds like when I was your age,
Yep.
not only did I not have, I had a job ever since I was 12. Or
Uh-huh.
it sounds like, and I went to school, walked uphill both ways, but I did,
Yeah,
by the way.
of course.
Side note, that's actually true. But but it sounds like you're complaining, and I'm not satisfied for the way that I introduce that sort of gratitude
Mhm.
conversation
Yeah.
that way. But if you say, did you know this about your grandparents? Did you know this about your great grandparents?
Mm.
It does make them, I think, feel connected in a different way. So I love what you said, Lindsay.
Well, and Lisa, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, it sounds like you're complaining. And so if I want to teach my kids to be grateful and I'm complaining that they're not grateful, I feel like maybe I'm actually teaching them the opposite. I feel like when I was growing up, I knew that the worst thing I could be to my parents was spoiled. Because it was like, if I'm spoiled, like, oh, I'm the worst person in the world. Like, if I
Yeah.
whined at the store, if I didn't recognize that my parents paid a lot for the sports that I was doing that year, because they didn't have a lot, and I think they were so worried that I was going to grow up and be entitled. And so I think I carry some of that fear, but I'm also recognizing, like, well, that didn't help me. And so
Mhm.
when I'm trying to get my kids to look at things with gratitude, the fear part of me, I think, starts to go in that direction and say, well, look at all the stuff that you are taking for granted. And that is me complaining that they are not being grateful. But when I can say, I know that we have little rituals in our family that sometimes help, which is I think that's more modeling it for them. So like when I see, we live in a really great place in Provo where we can see the sunrise really well over the mountains. And then we see the sunsets really well over the West Mountains. So anytime I see a sunset or a sunrise that's just gorgeous, I like rip everyone out of their seats and I'm like, come on, it's so beautiful. And maybe they think that's stupid, but then when they're in the car and they're seeing like the leaves are changing on the trees and they're like, guys, look out the window. That's so beautiful. I feel like the
Yeah.
bigger deal we can make out of those moments creates a much more lasting impression in their hearts than me being like, why can't you say thank you that I paid for this?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I love that, Whitney. It's important to recognize why we want our children to be grateful. Where is it
Mhm.
coming from? Right? If it's coming from a place of fear of them, not caring enough or not making use of all the money spent on this thing, then it's really self-centered, right?
Mhm.
But is our reason for wanting our kids to be grateful so that they can really grow character. And in my case, it's really important for me for my kids to build resiliency, right?
Yes.
And gratitude starts to form a little bit of that when I can make it so that they can recognize gratitude as a way to build connection and relationships, recognizing and giving thanks to someone, something, or even a higher power like God, as the reason why, they experience or enjoying, whatever it is that whether that be the sunrise, whether that be the sport, but that there's a benefactor that's helping them. And that right there, it helps me to feel like, okay, when they go through a hard thing, can they look at that hard thing and change their perspective and find strength in it versus just, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
This
Totally.
is just hard and life is hard, which it is. And
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 because if you're
Yeah.
looking
And-
for a
yeah.
medal for being a mom, your kids aren't going to give it to you.
What?
No.
Great.
I did make my sister a medal when she gave birth
Oh.
because I was like, no one cares, but
Oh.
I care, and here's a medal.
Lisa.
So cute.
That's so
So
cute.
maybe we can make medals for our kids.
Yes, do it. I was just thinking of this experience this past summer. My 17-year-old son went to Panama and did like a whole humanitarian experience,
Mhm.
right? It was so cool. He went to this village where they live in this village, they're barefoot. It's like going back in time.
Mm.
And it was a completely different world. The pictures, everything, it was so cool. So I'm like, oh my gosh, did that make you just so grateful for your life when you saw that? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I mean, just that these people don't have much. And he's like, well, they were really happy, Mom. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah.
Interesting.
He's like, I mean, I don't think they would want our life. Like they were happy. So it just like made me think, I think using that as like, now, aren't we so grateful we're, I don't know, better? Like, I think it was kind of reading
Yeah.
more as like, we're special because we've been given this when, of course, we're so grateful for what we have. We don't, I don't know. It just made me look at that different as like, it doesn't mean people aren't happy. So maybe that's the wrong way to approach being grateful. Does that make
Ooh,
sense?
I love that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So that's like something to think about. Like I was doing that a little wrong, I think.
Mhm.
Ooh, I love that you're willing to like say that. And also it's so funny because, and there's something in my brain that wants to go, then aren't you grateful that I gave you that experience?
Yes.
To
of
learn
course.
that.
Uh-huh.
There's a little something. And my kids are older. I have one at home of my 5 kids, and my other ones are for all intents and purposes adults.
Yes.
And they've all in their own situation have struggled with, depression,
Mhm.
especially after the loss of their father and all of that. And one thing that I talk to them quite openly about is, you do all the things, right? Like exercise, eat right, drink enough water, go to therapy, take medication if you need to. And part of that is, and keep a gratitude journal. I mean, I
Mhm.
put that in the list of these are the routines that we do to make it all things possible for us to feel good and to be healthy mentally and physically. And I can't tell you how many notebooks and journals that I've bought them over the years for them to keep said gratitude journal, and they don't do it. And
Ah,
so this question of like, how do I teach them based on like my experience and what I have learned, like keeping my gratitude journal during a really intense time, I credit that to seeing a lot of things that I didn't see before because I was focused on them, even subconsciously. And it made such a difference. But just sharing that experience with them, um, it wasn't enough. And I think that especially as moms, we're playing the long game, right? Like I want them to remember that, whether or not it has an immediate effect. And it doesn't mean that the lesson isn't there. It might just not be for right now.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how you like change your parenting approach to sort of fit what, stage of life your kids are in.
Well, I think like Whitney said, like model it. I think she modeled it by recognizing the sunset. And now her kids recognize the leaves. So I think that's what I'm learning is just modeling it. And we have to be like, maybe the journals are for us so that we can recognize it, be grateful, and then model it for our kids better.
I really like what Ruth said about setting up your children for success, right? That it's not a quality that we're wanting our kids to develop. It's a lifestyle that we're wanting them to navigate. Because I feel like, we talk a lot in my faith of this idea of being grateful and being grateful to a God or being grateful to other people. And I think sometimes it boils down to like, count your many blessings. But that in and of itself, I think is maybe linked towards like a prosperity gospel that then, well, if life isn't going well, how do I set my kids up for success in that? And so I think the idea of being grateful in your circumstances is this lifestyle mentality, right? Where you're able to flip a switch and say, okay, instead of just being able to pick up something and say like, I'm grateful for this, being able to just see through the lens, right? And say like, wow, I, even in my lowest of lows, I'm able to have these resources and reach out to this. And I have this faith or I have this support system that makes me believe that there is a sun coming up and that things do get better and that there is hope. That for me that's the reason behind the gratitude, right? Is to just be able to keep going when you feel like, well, no one's handing me anything special today.
I love that. As a mom of 4, my kids are 12 and under. Baby just turned 6. I can't believe it. They're at a different age. They've experienced different things. Even the birth order, there's a lot of research on how each kid, internalizes things differently depending on where they are in the family. But I was just going to say, how do we apply, how do we teach this? For me, it's adjusting my expectations according to developmentally where they are and how they perceive and learn with each one, as you get to know your children. It's been interesting, Lisa, you started off, with this example of immigrant parents and coming to America. And that's the story. That's my story, right? My parents were that. My husband's parents were that. And so being the oldest, and being the second generation, but the first to do everything here in the United States, kind of somewhat not the same, but similar to how high of a degree and important it is that my children are grateful. But, I was able to graduate from school and for my master's program, I'm a social worker, and I practice. And, we've been able to acquire more things, a better living situation, better opportunity and access to services and experiences for my kids, which is exactly what motivated me to do the hard thing and to sacrifice. And now I'm seeing my children, as we've moved houses, my second daughter made the comment and said, this last house is better than the second house, better than the first house. And she said, Mom, I really, really like this house better than the last 2. We should stay here. And part of me was like, okay, sure. I mean, it is a nice house, right? But it's also just adjusting my expectation that how I learned gratitude isn't their experience and isn't the way that they're going to learn it too. So I've got to look at, different opportunities to help them teach that. And as a social worker, I want to find ways that my family and my children especially can get involved, and be in the community and serve one another and see those differences. And I feel that builds again, not like Lindsay was saying, like, oh, look at them and look at us, but that, different people in different circumstances can acquire this level of gratitude in different ways as we serve, and give of us to something else.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like it's particularly challenging to either model or teach gratitude when we're not feeling it. We kind of touched about that, like right when we started of it, like just do this. But in those moments where you have not felt particularly grateful for whatever reason, how have you gotten out of that, or like how have you adjusted that so that you can still show up for your kids with an air of gratitude? I've done things that hit and some that miss. One thing that I always feel really tricky and very tender about is when we're in situations like one of my kids just got married, or you have to fill out a school form. There's all these like where you're like, they don't have a dad. Like, and I start feeling like, it's just the thing that I didn't want them to do. And I found myself saying to my kids, like, I'm really sorry that you don't have a dad, but at least I found you the best one. And I find myself saying those things because I'm trying to also convince myself, like, but you should be grateful because your dad's really great, even though he's not here, and it feels like it doesn't honor like the real situation. So when it gets sticky like that, what do you guys do? I know.
I will say what doesn't work.
Oh yeah. Let's go there.
I know for me, I'm a fairly type A person, and I think I can very easily see the flaws, and sometimes that's a good thing. But most of the time it's me being able to see like, well, like it's just this flick over and over. And so when I am feeling low, it is right where it's like, but I should be grateful, but I should be doing this. Oh,
Could be worse.
It could be worse. It more is just like, I think I'm shoulding myself. That's what I hear a lot. I'm shoulding myself. And while that can get you a little ways because it is awareness and your intentions could be geared more in the direction you want to go, it really doesn't get you very far, right? And looking at it, if we want to look at Monsters Inc., I mean, they got way more power out of laughs than out of screams. And I think we as people get way more mileage out of compassion and self-compassion than out of shoulds and out of like, okay, I'm going to strong arm myself into a more grateful person. And so I recognize that when I am able to take a day, what I've started doing is I have my journal prompts that I try and like make one a week. And the journal prompt that's been sticking for me right now is like, can I take out the like negative attachment to myself in whatever story I was telling myself today? So if I'm telling myself, oh, I didn't spend enough time with my kids today, like I was way too distracted, I then just write down in my journal, I did not spend as much time with my kids today as I do in other days, period. And that's all it is. It's just a neutral statement.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
Just taking that part out of it where it's like, I should have done this. I didn't do this enough. I think when I'm starting to do that, gratitude comes more readily for me.
I like that.
And it's not even a conscious choice. I think it's more just like, I don't feel the unbearable weight of my own disappointment. And I'm just like, wow, like, look how beautiful the world is when I'm not feeling like crap.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, I think like when I try and force my kids, to be grateful, it never works. And it actually doesn't work with me.
Yep.
I hate to admit that, but if I am having like a really dumb moment that is meaningless, like I wake up with more acne than usual and I think, well, this is just the worst, like, why do I have this? I'm 44 years old, right? I mean, it's so dumb. And then if I tell myself I should just be grateful that I have skin, like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I do. Yes.
And our kids do the same thing. You know,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have any friends. Yes, you do.
You do.
You should be grateful for the
You
ones
should
you
be
have or whatever.
grateful.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work.
Doesn't
And so
work.
as you've been talking, I'm trying to think of what I really do. And I
Mhm.
think I do. I give myself a minute, a self-pity party maybe. I try and remove myself emotionally and just like, it's okay. Like maybe that's more, and then I am more grateful in that space. But I think I have to like get myself out of the situation mentally. And then I'm like, it's really not a big deal. And then I do feel more grateful. But I don't think just saying I should be grateful, it doesn't work for me or my kids. So I don't know if you kind of have to do a roundabout way of it. Take a step back.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I love what Lindsay and Whitney you've said. And for me, it's really getting better at developing empathy for myself first, to then give empathy out, to my kids and family and relationships. And empathy means, that you're giving yourself grace, you're giving yourself space, you're telling yourself you're a human being too. And we have those days where we don't feel it 100%. But also for me, along with what's been said, I really, it takes this council of moms. We hear the saying, it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
To raise our kids. I think it takes a council of moms
Amen.
to be able to parent, to be an effective mother. And for me, it's always been so important to develop relationships with mothers that I can trust and that I can go to and share authentically what I'm going through or what's going on and this and that. And it's just so helpful. Again, it's free.
Yeah.
But to just bounce ideas and to say, what I've been going through. And it's just a beautiful kind of rephrasing of how I'm seeing things to get me up again and be like, okay, that was a moment there. That wasn't my whole day, or that wasn't my child's whole years of life. This is just a moment, and I have the next afternoon, or the next evening, or even the next day to try something different. But I've got to be able to process it, whether that be journaling, talking, in this case for me, talking to my friends, to be able to then say, okay, or colleagues that I trust that are also moms. I'm a working mom. And so it adds some interesting dynamics sometimes to some guilt or feeling like I don't have enough time. I don't give them enough time and things like that. But to surround myself with moms that are in that same situation, it's really helpful to kind of get out of that negative thinking.
I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission just to say the thing, just to say the fact of the matter, when it really does have like a lot of power just to diffuse the situation. And like you have each said, like take the emotion out of it, at that fear. And whether that's you say that to yourself or to somebody else, it's so great. And so I appreciate the shout out for Ruth for the Council of Moms, because I verbally process. I'm a podcaster and with my friends, but that's how I've gotten through. And just being able to say things, like, I want my children to be grateful. My kids have had to deal with a lot and more than I think their peers have at an earlier age. And I feel bad about that. And I hate that for them. And I hope that it makes them want to be, and actually does make them more empathetic going forward, and makes them better people, more resilient and more gritty. In that is my hope. And I just want to state it. And then I state it and I think, oh, how are all the ways that I can do that or encourage it? And I think, again, the power that we have and the pressure as moms is that they're paying attention to us more than we think they are. And watching what we say and do, even when they're older. Enough so that they can like imitate us and make fun of us for very specific things.
Yeah.
But the opposite is true. They're watching and they're listening so that, to model that.
Yeah.
So we've run out of time for this, and I'm wondering what your final thoughts are on this idea of gratitude. We can each have a chance.
Well, I was just thinking one last thing with like what Ruth keeps bringing up, empathy.
Yeah.
And that does tie well with being grateful.
Mhm.
And then Lisa, thinking what you have been through and your kids have been through, like just this morning, my husband and I were on a walk and he said, we need to be careful with our kids. We're not just doing sympathy, we're using empathy. And I was like, okay, go on. I don't know the difference. And he said, okay, so sympathy is like your kid is down in a hole and you're like, oh, shoot, you're down there. Let me throw you a rope. Come on out. I'm so sorry, you know? And empathy is going down in the hole with them and helping them get out. And I think your kids are going to be amazing at that because they've experienced that, right? And you're amazing at that. And there is this level of gratitude. Like they understand life's at a different depth. And then they have that empathy. They're going to be able to go down in that hole and not just say, oh, sorry, that happened, you know?
Mm.
I like that view of gratitude, of having more empathy, going down in the hole with someone and helping them, being there with them, being there with them in the hole.
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like what this has kind of funneled down for me is like, I mean, on a daily basis, my kids, you know, they'll come home from school. I've got 3 boys and they each struggle with different things at school. And so if I have my youngest who constantly will come home and be like, this person did this thing that was unfair and they were teasing me or bullying me, instead of like being in the moment, I'm like fearfully or anxiously looking down the road and I'm like, is my kid going to be that kid that is a victim in all situations? Or like with other kids of mine, like is my kid going to be that kid who like just reacts and can't stop and think about something? Like you have all these fears of like, is my kid going to be that kid? And so when they are telling me things, I feel like my knee-jerk reaction is, well, I don't want them to go down that path. And so I think I will initially be like, well, that person was probably having a really hard time, and that's why they were being rude to you. Or, well, you know what? But the teacher's really stressed. And so we really do need to get, you know, it's like every moment for me is like, this is a teaching moment. And instead, if we are able to be in the hole, right? And to be able to sit with them and have that grace, have that compassion and be like, oh my gosh, that just sounds like the worst day. I'm so sorry. Like my kids usually they work it out. Like I'm surprised when I give them a moment, even if it's like no one's making out of this alive. Like we just had a nuclear meltdown. People were physically injured by someone else in the party, and my kid's a serial killer. Like even in those moments, if I give them a moment and I am able to see like, wow, you are struggling so much and this is hard. Usually like their own facade, they'll let it go. They'll be able to see what they did wrong. They already know what they did wrong. They don't need me to point it out. So if I offer that to them, they usually take that moment to process and be like, okay. And then they go apologize or they go pick up the mess they made or they go like try and make it up to their teacher. You know, it's like they do it themselves. And so that's when I realized, gosh, like how much mileage do we get out of this? Like just actually letting ourselves feel that grace and that compassion, letting our kids feel it. I think for sure that gratitude blooms out of that.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's
and I would just
beautiful.
add again that gratitude, I want to teach my kids that gratitude builds relationships, builds connection.
Oh, yeah.
And I think those are 2 strong forces for my husband and I in seeing again from the lens of resiliency, helping them to go through hard things. If they can know how to do that, build connections, build relationships, and gratitude being one of the ways that they can do that, then I'm going to try. That's all I
I
can
love
do.
it.
Just try.
I love it. Thank you for such a great discussion on the Council of Moms about how to teach your kids gratitude. And I love that it's gone to empathy and to modeling and also to like letting us feel like our emotions. It's time well spent. The Council of Moms, it's free.
It's free.
But you get your bang for your buck, right?
And
Like,
one
that's right.
therapist.
You get more. Yeah. And one therapist. Council of Moms, made with real moms. Thank you for listening. And wherever you're listening, please subscribe to the Council of Moms and share this with another mom that you think might get a kick out of it. We need more moms
Yes.
on the Council of Moms because we need each other because we're all making it up as we go. So and don't forget also that we're on YouTube. Subscribe there as well, and share. We love to hear your comments. This is where we get our questions and our content. So we love it. Thanks again for this discussion.